All right, we're inching closer and closer to our breakout sessions, but we are about to be inspired by our keynote speaker, and it is such a pleasure for me to introduce her. Ruslan Ali has dedicated more than 2 decades of her career to advocating for educational equity. Ruslan is the CEO of the XQ Institute, an organization she co-founded with Laureen Powell Jobs. XQ partners with communities throughout the country, from individual schools to entire school systems, to help them dream big about what high school could be, turn their ideas into action, and create a more rigorous and equitable education system. Ruslan started her career in corporate law at one of the top firms in the country, where she gravitated towards pro bono civil rights work. A background in law would later serve her well in leadership positions at organizations focused on educational justice, from the Advancement Project to the Children's Defense Fund. She also served as the founding executive director of Education Trust West and the vice president of Education Trust National, where she championed academic achievement for students of all backgrounds. A strong believer that education is one of the great civil rights issues of our time, Ruslan took her fight for fairness to the public sector in 2009 when she became the then youngest Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights at the U.S. Department of Education. Thank you, Ruslan, for being here, and welcome.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you. What an honor to be here. Good afternoon. Sudeep, you said it. It is the alliance of what we're all here to do and represent. You all have a mighty task. Jacqueline, thank you for that warm introduction. President Crow, your leadership in this space is unparalleled. You are a movement maker, a movement builder. And to each of you in the audience for being here, for partnering with the Biden administration to put this work at the top of the national agenda. I say it again, yours is a mighty task. We come together at a moment when the future is in peril. Steve, President Crow said it. The global community is facing the most existential crisis we have seen. That is the climate crisis. The students in our classroom today are the problem solvers of that crisis. In so many ways, the work you are charged with doing to bring STEM education awareness, fixing this problem to the top of the national and civic agendas is the most important issue facing the future of our country and planet, and you are on the front lines. So thank you for the work you do and for allowing me to be here today to talk with you about what we have learned. I don't have to tell anyone in this room that we don't have enough people working in the STEM fields. You've heard the data so far. The pipeline, our schools, our systems, it simply isn't creating enough of us to fill the roles. Pervasive achievement and opportunity gaps exists. While Latino, African American, Native American people represent 31% of the population, fewer than 1 in 4 of us are represented in STEM fields. Now, the benefits couldn't be more obvious. The most recent data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics proves it. 15 of the 20 fastest growing occupations are in STEM or STEM adjacent fields. What does that mean? That means we have to have a deep understanding of STEM skills. We have to be experts. 4 out of 5 of the highest growth sectors. Every one of the 15 occupations that Anthony Carnevale at Georgetown calls a family-sustaining wage requires STEM or STEM adjacent skills. 8 of those 15 earn a wage of $100,000 or more. So the benefits of this work are obvious. We need the national imperative This has to be our common charge. We've done it before. We did it when we thought that we were at the top of the technological revolution and realized in Sputnik we weren't. We did it when a nation at risk said that we were in a unilateral educational disarmament. We were doing it to ourselves. We brought unprecedented resources. We came together. No matter our differences, we made this the top of the national agenda. We need to do it again. And you all, with this charge and this administration, are on the front lines of doing it. I know this is the third of several conversations that you are having about this work. I know your deep work on teacher pipeline, on curriculum. Today, I want to talk about another fulcrum of change, what we believe is the fulcrum of change. Our nation's high schools doesn't get enough attention. If addressed, it would introduce a new way of learning at a crucial time when we are losing students from STEM and prepare our students for the future like never before. For a very, very, very long time, our high schools have been stuck in an outmoded system. Right now, less than half of all high school students graduate ready for college and career. 60% of ninth graders report losing interest in pursuing STEM by the time they graduate. For girls, when they're in grade school, 66% want to pursue a career in STEM. When they get to high school, that drops to 32. By the time they're in college, freshman year, that drops to 4%. Boys are losing interest. One recent study showed a 12% decrease in 1 year for interest in STEM. You see, the problem isn't that we are asking young people to dream too small. They're actually dreaming quite big. The problem is that we ask them to dream them big, and then we put up a wall between them and their dreams. I want us to think about the incubation of those dreams, our nation's high schools, as a place that is the opportunity to produce an environment for young people to excel and their teachers. Think about our high schools today. They were structured without any regard for the learner. A one-size-fits-all approach was designed to compartmentalize learning into classrooms and courses designed for a different era. We know what works. Decades of research of adolescent learning and development show. National Assessment of Education Progress's latest findings prove this. Higher student achievement equals a 15% increase in student success. Belonging, what we often talk about in STEM and STEM-related fields and why kids are excluded from STEM, that sense of belonging is especially cogent when we talk about pathways into STEM. So many young people struggle to see a future for themselves in this space. Beyond 100K interviewed Black and brown students and high school grads from across the country in the STEM fields who had kept going despite the barriers. What they showed, those studies showed, is the emerging theme always was a young person's sense of belonging in the classroom. How do we make these courses, this frame, accessible? We know how we stand on the shoulders of pioneers. I want to stop for a second because I should have started with this. Billy Malcolm, we stand on your shoulders. It's a real honor to be in this room with you. Because you're excluding too many from this space. And it's illogical. We can talk about equity, we can talk about closing the achievement gaps, we can talk about closing the persistent opportunity gaps. It is pioneers like you that our schools need to nurture. And if we don't, it is also at our nation's peril. Thank you. Instead, our high schools end up shutting that door. STEM attrition is high in all fields. 8%, according to a recent study from Beyond 100K, we're losing 60%, 60,000. We need 60,000 STEM teachers to fill the gap. We simply can't continue to stick down this path. In order for science and the engineering field to reflect the population by 2030, the number of women must nearly double, the number of Hispanics and Latinos must nearly triple, the number of Black and African Americans must nearly double, the number of American Indians and Alaska Natives must quadruple to meet the goal. How do we do it? You complete STEM in high school, you have a greater interest in STEM careers, and you have a stronger likelihood in STEM of a major in college. Now, the root and branch of this problem is the system itself. Our system was built to accommodate a time-based measure of student achievement. Seat time. The root and branch of this, if we are really to focus on high schools and what it will take to change it all, is the notion of the Carnegie Unit. The entire keystone for which our public education system was based, the credit hour, it's responsible for everything. Born in 1906, when only about 4% of young people went to high school, when the notion of antibiotics was a dream, when Arizona was not a state. And it governs everything of how we do schools in America. It defines two things, and really across the globe. It defines two things: the number of minutes a student needs to devote to learn a subject, and the number of credit hours to earn a degree. And everything from budget to teacher assignment to the way we do teacher and learning is structuring around that. It was equity-oriented in 1906. In fact, no other change has swept across the public education system as fast. 4 years, from 1906 to 1910. Then it was Charles Eliot and Ralph Waldo Emerson and Yale and Harvard that led the charge. I submit to you, it was Michael Crow and this team at ASU that is doing it now. And finally, today, the Carnegie Unit is actually bringing inequity to the system. It's stifling innovation. It makes us stuck. It makes young people have to repeat an entire course if they don't learn part of it. It makes teachers incapable of interdisciplinary teaching. It makes education rigid. It stifles innovation. Now, for decades, the system has recognized that it's outmoded. The field has talked about it, yet without a suitable replacement. Attempts to design solutions often did more harm than good. They lack rigor, they threaten equity, or when done well, it's too often found only in extracurricular programs or in very prestigious private schools. We can't achieve progress with the same old system. We have to free learning from the limitations of time. We have to empower educators to design student-centered transformational learning experiences beyond the four walls of a traditional classroom, outside the rigidity of 50-minute bells and standalone courses, to redefine and re-credentialize what it means to be a high school graduate with richer forms of measurement and assessment, with intentional integration of cognitive, social, and emotional competencies into students' core academic learning. Now, there is a hunger and demand for change, proof that it's necessary and will work. Neuroscience data says this. High schools are not too late. You can even change an IQ. And I see the demand. I witness this firsthand. I get to serve as chair of the managing director of education at Emerson Collective. As we launched XQ, 10,000 people across the country in almost every state joined a movement to be designers of learners. 50,000 joined up to dig in. 10,000 saw it all the way through to the end. 7 months of becoming a designer of learner, making schools the hub of community, showing what's possible when you break through the old modes and the old architecture and the old time-based system of doing schools. Now, what does that look like? I want to show you for a moment. Jacqueline, can we cue the video?
The video?
We are the pioneer class of Crosstown High School.
Come on, Daddy, pick it up! Pick it up, pick it
You will
up!
do this often. You will live in this. Ideate prototype, ideate prototype, ideate prototype.
Where I come from, it's like pencil, paper, lecture. You come to Crosstown, it's completely different.
You need to develop a deep understanding. That might be through research. That might be through your own pondering of your own self.
There's room for all kinds of projects. I have another student who's making a dome that they're going to put on Mars, and they have ants. Ants are going to be the people.
So an ethical quandary is like this. A group of people traveling to a foreign planet, colonizing. Who governs them? What laws do they have to follow?
I had a student tell me the other day that going to Crosstown doesn't feel like going to school. But you know what the interesting thing was is she was like upset about that.
Students oftentimes are still thinking in traditional models and modes of thinking. You really got to think about this differently.
The way it's set up is that you don't really know that you're learning. So it's like tricking you into learning.
Where's the content in this? What am I doing?
They want that ache of actually like feeling that they're learning, a little pulse in their head.
Here we go. Everybody, quiet. Shh. All right, what we're about to do, because I've had like 1,000 complaints, like I've learned nothing this quarter. So that's how you feel. I'm going to show you how that is not true, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass out an EOC test. It's this big old test that you have to take at the end of the year. I've heard these grumblings and rumblings of like, we haven't learned anything. I'm trying to show them that we actually did cover these standards that are required by the state. All right. Take one, pass around. All right, hey, no more talking. Now you're gonna use your reasoning skills to answer this test.
She's like, because y'all think y'all not learning anything, have this test. And it's like a standardized state test that she gave us.
I get this test and I take it and I'm just like answering the stuff subconsciously. Like I'm not even realizing that I'm having no problem answering these questions.
We did it, and I was like, wow, it was super easy. And I finished it with no problem.
I didn't think I was learning anything. I take this test and I'm like killing it. At Crosstown, you have to become comfortable in being uncomfortable. It's something different every day.
Crosstown is just one of many places that show when you free up learning. More teachers like Nikki enter and stay in the field because they are empowered to do what they love. That when students learn in ways that are relevant to their lives, whether it's understanding how gravity works on a football field or learning trigonometry through architecture and design, they begin to see a future for themselves in the adult world. Crosstown is a special place, but it shows that it is possible. It was a mom who really did want a different vision and experience for her young people. And she and so many other community caring citizens came together to make a new vision. and it caught fire. It had diversity at its core, diversity by design in an otherwise utterly segregated community that put project-based learning and student voice and the science of learning at the core of how they would remake school. And it is on a journey, but it is showing deep results for the community and, most importantly, for the students themselves. We can see the same at Dunbar, where students see the entire city of their classroom and are working hand in hand with the mayor to problem solve city problems that involve deep analytics and rigorous math. Future-ready schools in New York City include a data science pathway that pairs computer science and AP statistics, and courses like digital forensic, data analytics, data visualization, machine learning. Through a partnership with Nanotronics, a leader in computer engineering, students at Brooklyn STEAM are learning and applying math and engineering and multimedia pathways through industry-based projects, initiatives that pay them stipends for their work. Your work in this room can accelerate this progress. Your work on the teacher pipeline will help solve not just the teacher shortage in this space, but the teacher quality gap that gives rise to the achievement gaps in too many of the schools where students are most dependent on their teachers for their learning. It's also about the ecosystem work, credentializing this rigorous new way of teaching and learning. We've teamed up with some of the best minds to credential, developing out a math badging initiative that covers traditional strands like Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, but gets us through to relevant needs of today, data science and statistics. 23 badges, each representing a set of core mathematical concepts, being piloted right now in 19 schools around the country. Math badges are larger than a standard, but smaller than a course, providing administrators, educators, students with the building blocks to create much more flexible math pathways for each learner as they move towards mastery. Put another way, students won't have to repeat an entire course if they need to do more work to master a single area. The badges enforce and ensure that integrating academic rigor with real-world learning is a way of teaching and learning in a classroom. They make learning wilder. They're based on adolescent developments that provide the supports for motivation, engagement, and a sense of belonging in math. They make for interdisciplinary teaching in exciting ways. In Illinois, a math teacher and career tech education teacher teamed up to teach geometry in construction. In other states, we've seen new approaches to teaching algebra informed by cognitive science, engaging students in learning algebra through authentic, relevant, challenging projects that stimulate motivation, create a mindset of agency around math. Kentucky sites are reimagining algebra. Idaho is making rigorous alternatives to Algebra 2. In Atlanta, we're seeing students outlining policy change that would end free student lunch programs as part of the Change the Story module of what they're calling XQ Math. They use linear functions to model the impact on poor students across the states and present it as a graphical novel. Of course, math is an important start. We have to do this across subjects, and the only way to do it together. You all are the front lines of a national charge that has to be willing to leave our comfort of the familiar if we are to welcome in a new era for STEM education in the country, one that is inclusive and relevant, personally and culturally, and connected to the real world. We look forward to being in partnership with you, and thank you for your work ahead for the rest of the day.